Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, a few days ago, an extraordinary thing happened. Amnesty International, one of the leading human rights organizations in the world, published a report which confirmed what many YouTube producers and commenters have been saying for some time, including us, exactly, that Ukraine is violating international humanitarian law, and it's doing so by essentially stationing its armed forces in civilian locations, particularly schools and hospitals, with a view to drawing retaliatory fire from the Russians. Now, we've been saying this for some time. People have been posting things on YouTube, including scenes in which Ukrainian citizens were berating Ukrainian military for actually putting their forces into civilian locations and thereby endangering all the children and everyone else. But this Amnesty International report detailed this and then said that once they, a school was destroyed, what did the Ukrainian soldiers do? They moved on to another school. And then once that was destroyed, they moved on to another school. So there was a remarkable need to go and move to schools. And of course, why are you moving to schools? Why are you moving to hospitals? Because that's what generates media attention in the West, because the media in the West are determined to present Russia as targeting civilians, committing war crimes, doing nasty, horrible, sadistic things just for the pleasure of it, because they are nasty, horrible, sadistic people. And that has fueled the much of the Western media coverage. Now, of course, once Amnesty International published this report, all hell broke loose. So we had, of course, Ukrainian government officials, including Zelensky himself, denouncing Amnesty and suggesting that Amnesty is putting aggressors and victims on the same level. Then we had the British and the American governments intervening, because we had the UK ambassador in Ukraine tweeting out about this terrible report, and then the US ambassador also tweeting out about the report. And the Amnesty's Ukrainian representative has resigned, because she said she was cut out of the loop, had nothing to do with her. And of course, the Guardian, writing this, well, the people who wrote this report, they just didn't know what they were talking about. They were uninformed, badly researched report, very poor, yeah, low standard. But the director, the Secretary General of Amnesty International, Agnes Kayemad, who we remember, who wrote that report about the assassination of Iranian General Soleimani, said that she's sticking by the report. So at this stage, although Amnesty has sort of distanced itself, at least, well, she hasn't, but the resignation of this person would suggest that they have distanced themselves. Nonetheless, it's there. This is Amnesty International had said something that others have been saying for a long time. Ukraine is committing a war crime, and this does a lot of damage to the Ukrainian cause, because, of course, the way the West wants to have it is plucky little Ukraine, the victim of an unprovoked, unjustified attack from Russia, doing whatever it can, but all the war crimes are being committed by Russia. So it's damaging the brand as
you just stole the word from me. I was saying not cause, but brand. That's exactly right. Spot on right. Damaging the Ukraine brand. Now, the fact that Amnesty International's lead figure in Ukraine resigned is no surprise to me, because she was, I would believe, cut out of the loop, because we've seen consistently government officials feeding Western journalists a standard line. And so Amnesty International probably believed that this person wasn't, she's representing Ukraine. Okay, probably good to have a more unbiased view of things. unlike I don't know if you saw the article in Moon of Alabama where they had these situation report in Ukraine, and it's New York Times, and then the byline is this person reporting from Ankara, this person reporting from Berlin, this person reporting from Washington. I mean, these people aren't even on the ground. They have no idea how wars are fought. Okay, right. And all they do is they take government officials. Yes. And I think as Moon of Alabama put it, he said, "This is not even a he said, she said story. It's even more distant." Now, I'd like to know more about. I've read the headline reports, the bullet points from this. I haven't read the Amnesty International full report itself. But obviously they were on the ground. Okay, they did a forensic study of these places here, and it remains to be seen why they released it now. Okay, I'm very curious about that, because obviously, as you said, the brand is damaged. But of course, everyone say, oh, they dismiss it. These are amateurs. They don't know what they're doing. Okay, oh, they probably work for Putin. They're all paid off. Okay, but that thing, saying that gets very tiresome, because where is the success of the Ukrainian army? Remember, you and I said very early on, you would have, too much to my chagrin, you would have a Fox correspondent somewhere in Kiev and reporting on the war. Well, what war? I mean, what are you reporting? Okay.
Is this... I hear a crack somewhere.
Yeah.
There's it could be a car backfiring, or it could be
a backfire. George, you're stealing all my points here. Okay, but exactly. And so, and then from what I've been told by people that are interested parties, I'll be honest, but in looking at some of the things that the Ukrainian government has presented Western journalists, destroyed Russian tanks and armor. That's Ukrainian stuff in reality, okay? But they're saying, no, we destroyed this is Russian stuff. Yes, their equipment is very, very similar. There are some differences, though, that has been pointed out to me a number of times. So this comes at a particularly bad time for the Ukraine brand, because they don't have anything to show for their efforts. I'm not denying the bravery and the loyalty of Ukrainian soldiers. I'm not into that. I don't hate Ukrainians. I don't have nicknames for them. I just don't. The Nazis, yeah, and you and I pretty much keep it clean here, so I'm not going to say what I think about these people. But they don't have anything really to show, and then this comes in, and then Biden is what I think you said it was throw another billion. Don't you wish you had the power to throw $1 billion around?
Yeah. Well,
what are they getting for it? What are they getting for it?
Well,
as we're in August right now, and if you have any kind of sanity whatsoever in Europe, you're planning for the winter, and it's pretty grim, George. It's pretty grim. Right. And then I think it was the World Bank or the IMF. I think Slovakia, I think not Hungary, Italy, and another country. They're negative sentiment now, going into recession here. And you want to keep this unity on brand Ukraine. It's getting harder and harder to.
But I think that's right. And the problem that Europe and the United States is facing, and of course there's never been any real unity, is that no one has any say on this. I mean, we keep talking about this NATO, this 30-country alliance, and EU 27-country alliance, but ultimately all the shots are called by the United States. Everything is determined by the United States. And the Americans have decided that they want to keep this war going. They've decided that their strategy is just to bleed Russia dry. I mean, that's what they want to do. And the consequences for everybody else, and how, even for the American people, they have said, I mean, this Jake Sullivan was confronted on this. I said, okay, that, we can take these sacrifices. I won't, because I'm doing very nicely, thank you. I've got a nice rich wife, and I've got a good job, and I'll be okay. As will all my friends in the U.S. government. But basically, they're just going to keep this war going. And so there is no question that the Europeans would love to have this come to some kind of a conclusion. Just bring it to an end. So work something out, and then we won't freeze this winter. But it's not going to happen because Biden can just simply churn out yet another billion, and then next weekend it'll be another billion. We can just keep pouring, endless amounts into Ukraine. And Zelensky can promise, we're going to mount an offensive at Kherson, and then we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to drive all the Russians out of Ukraine, and then we're going to take Crimea.
We just need another 50 billion, and that'll do it. Okay, right. It keeps just a nice rolling fund to continue something that isn't working. Okay, that is, that's not sustainable. It's certainly not sustainable. Not because the U.S. doesn't, with its printing press, will continue to print money. They can do that until they completely devalue the dollar around the world. But it's going to be the Europeans. See, that's going to be something they're going to have to collectively somehow say uncle, okay?
But I don't know how. I don't
know how. I don't know how to square the circle, George. I don't know how,
because there's no mechanism for it. I mean, Macron can call Washington and say enough already. They don't care. What do they?
Who are you?
Macron? Exactly. Sergeant Schultz. They already told Sergeant Schultz where he can go. They already told him, hey, dump Nord Stream 2. Okay, dump Nord Stream 2. Good. Don't do that again. But then they're not going to listen to Schultz. Why should they? I mean, there's no incentive. Orban. They don't care about Orban. They don't care about anything. It's just that they want to do this thing. When Brzezinski came up with this notion in Afghanistan, that's their Vietnam, and we're just going to bleed them dry. And that's what they think they're going to do in Ukraine. They don't care about the Ukrainians. They don't care about Russians. They don't care about the Europeans. They're just going to keep this war going.
But I think we both agree that this is not a sustainable thing over a long term. Okay.
No, I think over a long term, no.
That's good. It's completely unsustainable, and that really brings up the issue of how to justify what that has been done here. And their justifications are getting thinner and thinner and thinner. All on top of that, Paul Krugman, which I'm not a fan of at all. Okay, but he obviously is a conduit for the
Thomas Friedman.
Right. And also,
Krugman doesn't. I don't think Krugman wrote about. I don't think he writes about Ukraine. I think Friedman wrote about this.
I think. Okay, I stand corrected. It was Friedman's article. Yeah. And being an insider, not a very deep thinker, he's a conveyor belt for the ruling class. The growing rift between Washington and Zelensky. Okay, that's what he claims, take it at face value. But, as you pointed out earlier, Zelensky shoots off his mouth way too often, and the people around him also. You get rid of some of your major, the equivalent of, the FBI and CIA in one day. Right. There's something going on in Kiev, okay?
Right. Right. That's right. I mean, and that's really the thing, whereas the United States, they want to keep this going. Zelensky and his gang want to keep this going. They're obviously making a ton of money through this. But as I say, I mean, Zelensky tends to shoot his mouth off, and the people around him shoot their mouths off. So therefore, when they have this attack on this Russian prison, and then a serious war crime. And then you say, well, we don't really shoot anything like that unless we get the go-ahead from the Americans. So in other words, you're implicating your patron in a war crime. That's a serious problem. Now, of course, the media makes light of this and they try to sweep it under the rug. But nonetheless, it stays out there because, I mean, once it becomes...
It's cumulative. It's
cumulative because it's there. I mean, it's like, when Gaddafi, when Hillary Clinton pretty much called for the death of Gaddafi, and then 2 days later, Gaddafi is dead. That kind of pretty much, the finger immediately points at the United States because we know they provided the key information to the people who were pursuing Gaddafi as to where his location. Then you had a pretty good idea that once they captured Gaddafi, they would just murder him, torture him, and then murder him. That's it. You've got the Americans dead to rights involved in a war crime. Now, happily, our media pay no attention to anything like that. But as you say, it's cumulative and it's something that, people will remember. You know, that's it. There it is. America was involved in a war crime.
Well, I tend to think that this month is going to be very important because we've heard through the corporate media Zelensky's call for a 1,000,000-man army and a summer offensive, which of course you've pointed out a number of times. You don't announce it in advance, okay? But this is.
You say the opposite, which is
we're not doing anything. No.
No offensive. None. There's not any offensive in this year.
But if you look at the map, Russia is in a position to start an offensive because it is beaten down, destroyed, pulverized a good deal of the Ukrainian army. Now it's these are new troops, new weaponry, new logistics. And George and I are not military people, but to have an effective military, you have to be very, very well organized because they all have to work together. And it's very hard to do that on the fly. It's very, very hard. Even with, if almost everything goes right, it doesn't completely go right. And so the Russians are poised in a position where they have. You have to remember, most of Ukraine's armed forces were on the line of contact with the Donbass. Okay,
right.
As George and I believe through reports that I believe that are credible. That's the reason why the special military operation started, because the Ukrainian army was going to attack the Donbass, and I believe probably simultaneously.
Well, that's right, and it's hard to see what Russia gains from prolonging this. I mean, I think that at this stage, there's absolutely no point in keeping Zelensky and his gang in power. I mean, they're obviously not ready to negotiate anything. Basically they're just running a racket, sucking in as much military hardware as they can, killing and destroying, targeting civilians and whatnot for as long as they can. There's just simply no advantage in just holding back. I mean, I'd say they should, move full speed ahead and either drive out Zelensky, get them to flee the country, or arrest them and then decide what to do then.
I think gagglers have to understand that George and I have had our thinking about this has evolved as the conflict has evolved and changed. I said in the very beginning that I didn't think that the Kremlin was interested in regime type in Kiev. I don't believe that anymore now.
No,
okay.
No. And they've said it. I think
George has played a big role in convincing me of
absolutely, that. Absolutely, no question. But Lavrov said pretty much, the goal is now to liberate Ukraine from the neo-Nazis who are running the country. So I think that's pretty much it. They're now committed to removing these people, and that's understandable, because as long as they're there, they're just going to keep this war going, and therefore they've just simply, there's no point in prolonging it and keeping them there. They're not going to negotiate anything. They're not going to engage in any serious talks. So what's the point of keeping them around?
Well, I surmise because of the growing panic in Washington that they don't want to talk about, but I think they are panicking. Nobody cares what they think in London, folks. Okay, it's Washington. We will see false flags. We will see a desperate attempt, like maybe firing on the Crimean Bridge, which of course plays into the Kremlin's hand, because they've already made it very clear. It's amazing how with so few words during this conflict, they've been able to telegraph really what their intentions are. It's very clear and very crisp, actually. Right. And so basically, you want to try and attack the Russian territory in this case, Crimea. The reaction will be horrific. Yes. Okay, everyone, 6 months into this thing here, Kiev has its command and control center in Kiev intact. Now, if the Russians really wanted to cut loose, that will come to an end very quickly, okay? They know where it all is. They know where the buildings are. They know where the entire apparatus that supports it. They know exactly where it is, okay? And I think that would be the reaction if the hotheads and it's people in Kiev that want to prove something to the Americans, okay,
right,
how committed they are, okay, and they will do a very risky targeting of something to show their American masters, you know, for what's all the money for. This is what the money's for, and then we'll see a major reaction. And I think it could happen in the month of August, September. And I agree with you. I think they want to wrap this thing up now.
Yeah, no, I think so. Of course, it'll be also interesting whether they might decide to, because they know there are all sorts of Western military trainers, advisors there, whether they'll do, target a number of them, and then a number of them will be killed, and then hey, you want to keep getting sucked into this, you're going to keep losing lives, and you're getting into a very dangerous path, because NATO wants to do this very sophistical thing of, well, we're not really a party to the conflict, and yes, we're providing all this hardware, we're providing all this training, we're providing all the targeting, we're providing intelligence, but we're not a party to the conflict. We're kind of disinterested observers. I mean, and sooner or later, the Russians are going to get tired of this. Then there's no obligation on the Russians to go on playing this little game. It's NATO's game. Stoltenberg may want to make this piece of casuistry of little, we're not, we're helping them defend themselves, but we're not a party to the conflict. The Russians aren't buying into that. So that's another thing that they could be. So yeah, they could make an attack on Kiev, take out the command and control, but I think they could also start killing off a number of the NATO advisors around.
Where we are now is that we can seriously think about what Ukraine will be, okay? And I think that's probably what's going on. One of the interesting things that we had on Crosstalk, we had Dmitry Babich on, and when you have people on the ground in Ukraine that have been liberated from these Ukrainian forces, they have to have complete assurances that the Ukrainians will not, the leadership class won't come back. If they can do that, that's their key to victory, okay?
Yes.
Have referenda there, start having local officials, get this post office working again, get the schools open again, get the commerce going again. That's what they need to do. They need to do that. And it will also serve as a demonstration effect of what happens when Kiev's forces are ejected. They're not going to be sitting in schools and hospitals, okay? Yes. Life will go, what they want is to get life going again. And that will work very much against the Kiev and very much for the local forces. I didn't say Moscow or the Kremlin. Okay. And it's focusing on local autonomy, local rule.
Right, yeah. Now, I think they will have these referendums. And I do think that they will be incorporated within the Russian Federation. I mean, I think that just leaving him like that is a problem. If you just, because yes, it's you're not going to, first of all, you're not going to get any public relations advantage by saying, well, they're not part of the Russian Federation, they're independent. Because once they're part of the Russian Federation, they don't have to worry about Ukrainians coming back, and they don't have to worry about Ukrainians lobbing missiles at them. So once you incorporate them, that's it. You attack this Zaporozhye, Kherson, you're attacking Russia. That means you are starting a war with Russia. I mean, I think that they tried to do a kind of halfway house from 2014. It didn't work. I don't think they're going to do it this time. And it doesn't matter because they don't lose anything. The West isn't going to accept either independence or autonomy or part of Russian Federation. So they don't have to worry about what the West thinks.
No, it's the Treaty of Versailles all over again, okay? Recognizing all these Eastern European states without any security guarantees, okay? Right. You learn, that's how you learn from history, is it? Right. George is absolutely right. There's no half-baked solution to this, okay? Because George and I will reiterate it again. One of the most important objectives of this military campaign is not to do it again in 5 years or 10 years, okay? Exactly. To make it definitive, taking it off the table. Now, was that the original goal? I don't know, but is that going to be the outcome? I think most certainly yes.
Right. No, that's right. I mean, it's clear, and the Russians have made clear that the longer that the Ukraine wants to keep this war going, the less they're going to get at the end. I mean, the more of Ukraine will simply be taken away from them. I mean, I think that pretty much said, that's the inevitable outcome. You attack us with these HIMARS, we're going to move further to make sure that you don't attack us with the HIMARS. I mean, so it's, they just ultimately there's less and less there's going to remain of the pre-2014 Ukraine.
There's one other element. So okay, I'll restate it. The more arms the U.S. sends in, the smaller Ukraine gets. But the third pillar is the more money Zelensky and his gang will pocket before they leave. And leave, I leave open-ended, leaving this world, leaving Ukraine.
Right.
Okay. Because I cannot see any other logical explanation other than personal greed. And of the oligarchs, look, a lot of these oligarchs are losing their livelihood, okay, because of they're losing their enterprises, their businesses, okay? And so these are the people that are in the know. They've always been in the know in the 90s, all the way up to now. They're the ones that pocket the largesse here. And I absolutely am convinced they're doing it now. That's one of the reasons why we got to keep it going, okay? I mean, these people in the West are so stupid to keep giving us money.
That's right. But there's another reason to keep it going, which is that whatever the final outcome, the West will just say, well, we don't accept it. Whereas, in other words, we're not taking part in any negotiations, because if we take part in negotiations, we're going to have to accept defeat. We're going to have to basically say, yeah, this territory is now lost, and that's all there is. And we basically have to sign off on it. So by saying we don't accept it, yeah, the territory is lost, but we'll say, yeah, but that's because Russia is so horrible and so monstrous. And then we can keep NATO mobilized, and we can keep America, military industrial complex, humming along and everything. So at least that's the advantage of that. And say, well, we just don't accept it. That's that. We don't accept the outcome.
Remember when Jen Psaki was State Department spokesperson, and I think the AP reporter Lee, something Lee.
Mac Lee.
Talking about nuclear armed North Korea. We don't recognize that. That's it. You don't recognize it.
Right. Okay. No, that's right. I mean, that's it. They're just going to take that, and then they can keep. Okay, just hey, if we keep everyone mobilized, but that's the advantage for America now. There's no real advantage in taking part in negotiations. If you negotiate, that means you have to admit that you've lost, having made all these demands. Where we want everything Russian out, and we want Crimea back.
It's very much. There's a great book called Departure of the Kings, and it's a history of the Versailles Treaty. And at the last chapter, the author goes through every single leader that put their fingerprints on that treaty were wiped out of politics, okay? And George is absolutely right. You'd have to be the lowest of low-level people, to be in the room, and they would be destroyed. So you're right, and that's why I've said for a very long time the timeline is run by Moscow, and the end will be determined when they say it's ready. Okay, again, we have to reiterate, when they believe that they have achieved their security guarantees, that they were denied even discussion. Right. Going back to December 17th, when the Russians say, "Look, we're sitting pretty," okay.
Right, but that's why I think that you can see the outcome will be basically Russia takes everything over. They control Ukraine's western border. In other words, no more arms come in, and there's no one there to receive any more Ukraine arms. And then that's it. I mean, the Americans then can't go on. Well, we're going to keep the war going, because if they try, okay, well, we'll fire our weapons from Poland, but we'll fire them from Lithuania. Then you've got a war with Russia on your hands, which Americans don't want to do. They can keep pouring in weaponry until finally they can't, because Russia has just secured all the Ukraine's western border. I mean, I think that has to be the final outcome towards which we're heading.
I'm not sure I would go that far, but I certainly think it'll make it very clear that weaponry coming into the country will be destroyed. They've selectively done it over the last 6 months, okay? Selectively done to show that they can do it. maybe my problem with controlling the western border is that Russia doesn't want to be an occupier.
No, but it may not have a choice now. I mean, that's the problem. They've been put in a situation where they don't really have a choice, because if they allow some kind of a rump statelet there, it's just going to keep the war going, and the Americans will use that rump statelet to keep the war going. So that's why they just don't have a choice. I mean, they would much rather not have to occupy that.
That's squaring the circle. I don't know. Okay. I'm absolutely convinced they don't want to be seen as an occupier. Look, in central Ukraine, it's a toss-up in so many different places with ethnic Russians, Russian speakers, and all that. You have the great mix and everything like that. Like Odessa, that's really problematic because it only became Ukrainian in 2014. Other than that, before that was Russian. Okay.
Right.
In Ukraine. Okay. Before 2014, Kiev was a Russian city. Everybody spoke Russian, okay?
Right. But I think that may well be, I don't know, some sorts of population exchanges or something like that. I mean, in other words, there may well be Ukrainians who will say, no, we don't want to live under Russian rule. And the Russians who say, we don't want to live under Ukrainian rule. I mean, so that may be one way of getting around it. But I mean, as Dima was saying, he's saying today, he hasn't seen any evidence of a guerrilla war. So if there's no evidence of a guerrilla war, then maybe a kind of an occupation wouldn't be so catastrophic.
I mean, there's one way around that. It's problematic, but it's probably the best way is local authorities, okay, where Ukrainians, are mayors of cities and towns and things like that, where you basically take care of your affairs, and just the Russians having a very light touch. And the only real touch would be security, okay? And of course, the intelligence community in Ukraine has to be absolutely shut down and reinvented, okay? I mean, the police most likely as well. They act as political actors enforcing an ideological line. That's going to have to be cleaned out too. But I mean, again, we have to keep our eye on Russia's definition of security. That's our point of departure. That's what we have to keep our focus on the most, and then work from that.
Right. No, I think so. But that's why I think that Lavrov's statements seem to be increasingly categorical, that the goals are now much more substantial than they were at the beginning. Because at the beginning, it was about denazification, disarmament, and independence for the Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics. That's not the goals anymore. I mean, it's now pretty much the Zelensky gang has to go. I mean, and that usually happens in war. I mean, it's just we're not going to negotiate a deal with Hitler. I mean, that's
but I mean, the thing is that I can't see how Zelensky can actually stay, because with the people that he broke bread with, Nazis, neo-Nazis, fascists, okay, they're not going to let him. I mean, if he signs and even acknowledges, concurs that the conflict is over, he's over.
Right.
Okay?
No, I don't think they are. I don't. That's just not. That's the point, because I think it's clear that they have no intention. I mean, it's obvious. There aren't any negotiations taking place. I mean, there's just nothing going on. I mean, that was it in March. There was the talks in Istanbul. In fact, there were talks from the beginning, right at the very start. Within days, there were talks. That's it. And then from March on, there's been no talks at all. So it's clear Zelensky, has had his marching orders, no talks, no negotiation. So if that's the case, then you just have to go for total victory.
Everyone, why aren't there negotiations? The answer is very simple. There's nothing to talk about.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And as I've told the story before, when I've been asked, well, what's a win-win? And I said, no, there's a win-lose situation here. There's no win.
No, that's right. I think that's where it's going. And another thing, for the Americans, it's not wholly an unsatisfactory outcome, because they say, yeah, okay, we don't have Ukraine anymore. On the other hand, we basically isolated, demonized Russia. We've got everyone on board with NATO. Probably the holdouts, such as Serbia and Bosnia-Herzegovina, I think they probably will collapse and come over to NATO. And then they'll say, okay, we've achieved what we wanted to achieve. We didn't say Ukraine, but what the hell do we care about Ukraine? We were only interested in Ukraine as a stick to beat Russia.
Ukraine was never the point.
Exactly. Okay. So.
Yeah, but I mean, the long-term effects of that. Okay, and plus with this environmental climate and fanaticism in Europe, which is so self-defeating. George and I like green. We like camping. We like nature.
Green, but green is good. That's the point. Green's
good.
That's the point. Green.
Yeah, but I mean, so the prize is Russia's out of Europe. Okay, well, yeah. At least for the rest of my life, probably out of Europe. Okay, and so.
I mean, other than it's a historic thing. I mean,
that's right. I mean, you and I have been down this path so many times. Okay, yeah. Historically, it's been ebbs and flows. And now we're in one of these situations here. But you can't just stop and dwell and look at the past. It is what it is. Okay, and so to be part of the West is existential. To be or not to be. To be part of the West, you have to do what the West says. No, we don't. No, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. You take me as I am. You take me as I am, or I'm not. Okay. Right. And I think there's an awareness here of that now. Okay. Yeah. I must admit, I'm kind of surprised. People think, well, okay, I'm no trips in Switzerland this year, maybe not in the next 10, okay? But people are crying about it, okay? Right. And they're not. And the sanctions so far, George, the average Russian isn't aware of it except if you buy something from Amazon, where your card doesn't work, okay? Right. But there are plenty of places, there's something called wild berries here, ozone, all the analogs, they're the same thing, the same products, okay?
Yes. Yeah. No, I think that's right. I think the Russian disillusionment is very, very powerful. And it's, and that the famous fifth column that obviously people were concerned about, the fifth column that will manifest itself we want to be part of the West, we don't want to we don't want to go into Eurasian isolation. It hasn't happened. There's no fifth column. I mean, I don't know, that will disappeared, I guess. So
well, but when Russian troops are dying in a foreign country and you take the fifth column thing, it doesn't go down, George. Okay, you got to close ranks. Okay, as much as you may not like Putin, there are plenty of people in Moscow, everyone that doesn't like Putin. Okay, I know that. All right. And St. Petersburg is the same thing. Right. But 50 kilometers outside of Moscow and St. Petersburg, they adore him. Okay,
that's right.
So
yeah, and where are people like Chubais? I mean, Chubais, I haven't heard much from Chubais.
Well, he showed himself the door.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
But he doesn't seem to have much of a following in Russia. I mean, he's just vanished. So.
No, I mean, I'll explain to you why. Because there hasn't been a catastrophe. Okay, there hasn't. All right, and national pride is it's old-fashioned in the West, I know, okay? It's not here. It's not here. You see people wearing Z t-shirts and things like that. Bumper stickers, flags on their car. I mean, that's how people feel. There is a sense of national pride. And talk about unity. I don't know if there's much unity in the West, but there's a lot of unity here, okay? The unintended consequence, this belief that all you have to do is kick in the door and the whole artifice will cave in. It's so, these are not Russia's specialists. They're none in the West. We lost Stephen Cohen a couple of years ago. There are very few people. And if you do understand Russia, you don't ever hear from them, okay?
Well, it's not in the Russian nature. It only happened once. Only once it happened, the Russians ran away, and that thank courtesy of the Bolsheviks. The Bolsheviks. But other than that,
another good reason.
No one's ever thought the Russians were people who were afraid of a fight.
Yeah. The ultimate fifth columnist,
Right, exactly.
And the Bolsheviks were the people that hated Russia and Russian culture the most. Okay.
Yeah. That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
It wasn't. It began to ebb when Stalin thanked first and foremost the Russian people,
the greatest nation
the world from fascism.
That's right. The greatest nation of the USSR. First time any Bolshevik had ever said anything good about Russia.
And you know what? At the time, you didn't disagree with Stalin. Wasn't a good idea in those days. Okay. No, this is where we stand right now. I mean, I think I've used it before. I mean, we have this Amnesty International report and we have a cover of Vogue magazine. Okay, you can choose what you want, but you can't have them both at the same time.
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
All right, everybody. As usual, George and I are keeping an eye on everyone. This week, I'm going to be out a little bit. I'm going to Lake Baikal. That's the largest freshwater lake in the world. Tucker Carlson's taking the week off. I'm going to take part of it off, but I will bring my computer and I'm going to try to coordinate with George, and maybe, no promises, maybe I'll have a beautiful background and George and I will do one of our podcasts.
Well, that'll be nice. That'll be nice. All right. Well, thank you. And,
but you know,
have a great holiday.
Well, I mean, it's been a few days, okay? Under the Russian labor code, I'm supposed to take a 1-month paid vacation. Now, there's a war going on. I have pangs of guilt. I discussed it with my superiors and they said, even the Army gets a little R in R. So I lost my battle to continue, but I haven't lost the battle to keep doing podcasts with George, which I will do with the exception of these few days. We'll see how it works out, okay?
All right.
But you don't have to worry, Aaron. George has his live stream.
Exactly. My live stream will go August, holiday, no holiday, beach, no beach. There's still my live stream Tuesdays and Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Please join me, come with questions, comments, criticisms, suggestions, whatever. And on the way out the door to the local watering hole. Think of little Buddy, he's just vanished and he's just disappeared out, you know, from depression over the emptiness of his life. And
he's giving me a dead stare. He's giving me a dead stare.
So, you know, please keep, let him sort of enjoy, what he can of this August. So put a few coins in the chip jar, and that'll put a smile on his face. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. Anything you can donate would be most appreciated. The more you can donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can invest in new technology, and above all, the happier little Buddy will be. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.